from there, it really snowballed, I suppose, in '95-ish when Judy Murray became the Scottish national coach.
Yeah.
And she was looking for a young, hungry coaching team. And
Enthusiastic.
I was one of those soldiers. There was about 4 or 5 of us that she kind of took under her wing. And that's probably when the grounding really, or the learning curve really steepens. That probably from '95 to 2001 was a ridiculous learning curve in terms of the exposure to the world-class education that we got, or information.
Yeah.
But as we talked about prior to this, the bringing to life of all these different methods and concepts, and experimenting with what worked for the players, what didn't. So that's probably the easiest or this quickest summary of how I got into it.
Wow, that's great. So you had that one opportunity, and got in with this coach, and he was obviously instrumental in bringing you on as a coach.
Yeah, massive.
There's so much now on, you must go and coach education courses, you must get this badge and that badge before you can work with athletes, and I'm sure you did that along the way. It's kind of the experience of coaching, you can't really substitute that. So
I'm a big believer that you have to earn your stripes in coaching. I think that coach education is obviously important. What you do with it is more important. I did a podcast interview a couple of weeks back, and the first question the guy asked me was, what do you believe the most important thing about coach education is? And I said, like in a click of my fingers, I said, the practical ability to use your knowledge. And he was almost surprised by this, because I think we think of education as being completely theory based. And I said, well, if you think about it, if it stays in here, and it could be fantastic knowledge, world-class knowledge, but it's the application of it that makes the impact on the person or the athlete at the center of the picture.
It's really important. So you can go and read all the coaching books, you can go and read all the theory, and you can have all the theories downloaded into your mind. But if you've never been in the context, in the situation, you're not really going to know how to take that theory from your mind and put it into practice.
And if you think back to when you've been at conferences and someone has given you a nugget of information, or a kind of real eye opener, or a light bulb pops off, it really then comes to life when they give you an anecdotal story or evidence of it, not just the actual information in its isolation. So that first few years.
So it's like learning in the context, it's being immersed in it, living it every day, in and out.
Trial and error, which some people find ethically are not comfortable with, this whole thing about using your players to experiment. It's not like a Frankenstein's monster experiment. It's also trying to discover what ticks for them, because it might not be the same thing for everyone.
I mean, absolutely. This whole idea of problem-based learning, that you're using error effectively. So
big time.
You're going to make mistakes. You, as a coach and as a player, and if you're experimenting with your players, then they're therefore experimenting with what they're doing. And problem solving. So
it's almost like you're living what you would like them to be, which is problem solving, adapting, improvisation, getting out of trouble. That's the whole process. You have to kind of live that as well. It's not a seamless upwards curve. It's pretty much a roller coaster along the way. So they need to get used to that.
So it's not clean cut. Being a professional player, there's so many highs, lows.
And the coach is learning at the same time as the player quite often. It depends on what level you're talking about as well, but quite often, if in the performance world or the high performance world, you will find coaches that are learning at the same time as the player, because they've not had the experience of working with that. So they are almost learning as they go along. And that's going back to when I first started in that performance world. We didn't know what we were doing. Judy had this vision of creating world-class players out of Scotland. But how? We had no track record of international success in Scotland. We produced some good juniors every now and again, but we didn't have that world-class track record. So that's why Judy started to bring in all these experts to help us. We'd bleed them dry, kick them back on the plane, and then go about trying actually bringing it to life. What works, what suits the Scottish culture or the mentality that we have, what doesn't. And it really was a hot pot of trial and error. And but on the court doing it, not in a classroom learning about it.
Yeah.